Penguin Random House Audio presents The Life Cycle of the Common Octopus, a novel by Emma Knight. Read for you by Saskia Marleveld. For my grandmother, Shirley Margaret Daynard, formerly Flood, née Gardner. If you took the monster's point of view, everything they did made perfect sense. The trick was learning to think like a monster. Cy Montgomery, The Soul of an Octopus. Now, I know there are exceptions, pregnant male seahorses with their brood pouches and so on, but mostly it's females who carry the future. It can be deadly work. In some corners of nature, children gain strength by eating their mothers alive. Among humans, such theatrics are frowned upon. Rare is the mother who forgets the goldfish crackers and is cannibalized in her minivan. More common is the one who devours herself. It disturbs me, looking at your soft belly, to think of you growing into a woman. I lay you down on the white bedspread to towel you off after the bath. I sneak my finger into the crevice between your chin and chest to make you smile. You follow me with your trusting eyes, dark as the North Sea, forgiving me in advance, or so it seems, for the many ways in which I will fail you. You are smooth and pink, and I pretend that we are still one. But even as I think this, I know it isn't true. I'm alone in my body again, and you're alone in yours. I lower you into your crib. You murmur and turn onto your side, caressing the plush octopus she sent us, going somewhere I will never be able to follow. I watch you lying there, heavy with milk and sleep, and think, we carry the past, too. I am 31 years old. From here I can see my own mother, far better than before. I can't see my grandmothers, but I can feel them, the choices they did not have, their warm, mutilated hearts, their capable fingers, finally at rest. Within each of us is an inky bottom place where fallen corpses and old skins feed new life. Flashes rise unbidden from the deep. What surfaces now, as I guard your sleep, is the age of leaving, the age of maturity, or so we thought at the time. In fact, we were tender and exposed, in need of every trick instinct and evolution could bestow. As nights smudge into looping days, I return to that year. I remember who we were and what we thought we knew. I turn it over in my mind, deciding what to let sink and what to preserve for a future that I can hardly presume to imagine, because it will be yours. Pollock Halls of Residence, the University of Edinburgh, September 13th, 2006. Dear Lord Lennox, my desire to reach you has overridden my Canadian obedience, and I am writing care of your literary agent, against the reasonable advice of both receptionists at your publishers. I want to assure you that this is not a crazed fan letter. I believe you went to school with my dad, Edward Ted Winters. He is not the most forthcoming of conversationalists, as you may know, but I've pieced together some clues over the years, and they all lead to you. I have recently moved to Edinburgh to begin a degree, and I wondered if there might be an opportunity to meet you. I can travel anywhere. This matter is as critical to my education as any. With apologies for the intrusion and many thanks, Penelope Elliott Winters. P.S. Though not crazed, I am a fan, and ever impressed by Paquin's ability to solve a murder 3 drinks in. Talmoric, September 23rd. Dear Penelope, delighted to receive your letter. Glad you made it past the guards. Fond memories of your father. Hope he's well. Come east. Must show you the vistas and ruins of the Mearns, though perhaps not all at once. Saturday next? The train will take you as far as Stonehaven. Send your landing time, and we'll send a good man with a good moustache by the name of Hector. The man, that is. Yours, Lord Lennox. P.S. The first two never count. Fall. 1. If you were to interview a handful of students as they emerged, static-haired and blinking, from their rooms in Pollock halls, some smelling inexplicably of horses, and others more explicably of charred cheese, you would learn that breakfast at the John McIntyre Center was not widely viewed as an inspiring meal. But Penn, who was ravenous in the mornings, looked forward to it. It was a Tuesday, the third in the term. Penn arrived at the green and brown building in the middle of the residence compound at 5 minutes to 8. Cold, wet air was reaching under the collar of her raincoat. She stopped into the convenience store for a newspaper. At the last second, her heart thudding its disapproval, she also requested a 10-pack of cigarettes and a box of matches. The man behind the counter didn't even glance at her. She was back under the portico, folding newsprint against the wind to scan the headlines and thinking about the letter she had just read, when Joe arrived with Alice trailing behind. Her friends stood out. Jo Scarlett more because she looked so wholesome, with her pale hair wound in a braid across her forehead, that it did not seem possible for her to belong to this century of internet porn and ocean trash. And Alice Diamond because Alice stood out everywhere. "Morning, Stinky," Jo said, touching her lips to Penn's cheeks. Alice, who had not yet shaken her national reflexes, bent down to hug Penn. As had become their custom since Jo had discovered Alice on the dance floor of the Opal Lounge, or had it been the other way around? During the 5-day game of chicken with mononucleosis, known as Freshers' Week, the three went into breakfast together. By the time of their arrival in Edinburgh, Penn and Alice had been fixtures in one another's lives for over a decade. Throughout high school, afternoons had found them sprawled on Penn's white duvet, their legs up the wall in a pose that Alice insisted was good for thinking deep thoughts, their bare feet brushing the Polaroids and ticket stubs on Penn's bulletin board, awaiting the beginning of life. Although they shared many common circumstances, both had been raised on prosperous, tree-lined Toronto streets by loving parents who believed they hid their unhappiness well. Penn and Alice had no shortage of points of difference to find fascinating in one another. Alice had grown early into a tall and striking young woman with the coloring and survival instinct of a lioness, while Penn, a late bloomer, had usually been the smallest and quickest in their class, with the glow-in-the-dark eyes and skittish flinch of a black house cat. Each had learned much of what her parents preferred not to talk about from books, but while Alice devoured anything that contained either an ambitious hero's dogged pursuit of his true destiny or technical descriptions of sex, and these she underlined for future reference, Penn became devoted, around her 14th birthday, to plowing through her mother's entire collection of thin-paged, densely typed 19th century novels. At that age, their truths reached her only in the way one might catch a whiff, from across the fence, of a neighbor's dinner cooking on the barbecue. Alone in her room, she ran her eyes along the surfaces of their sentences, trying to convince herself that the enduring and transformative love they so often described must be observable somewhere in the real world. Penn later learned that many of her favorites had been written by women for whom marital bliss had remained, for one reason or another, forever out of reach. She was able to conclude then, with the relief that can accompany the death of hope, that these stories were mere fantasy, and that the conjugal disharmony of real life alone could be taken as fact. Facts were of considerable importance to Penn. She had learned early to mistrust both the Pascal's wager Protestantism of the Winters branch and the residue of Catholicism that clung like incense to her mother. In the absence of religion, she found facts reassuring. Alice was the only person to whom Penn freely related her many theories and discoveries without fear of being either mocked or fully believed.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?